All right, so I'm going to go over how I process birds, how I process my ducks. Thing I like to do. Oh, where's my? That's right, there they are. I have a buddy that ties flies for a living. So what I do is I pluck these side feathers for him, and I put them in a little bag. That's about 4 or 5 different birds. And what I'll do is I'll typically just rip like this to get those side feathers off. Beryl will be so pleased. Alright, we're gonna try to, yeah, this is about 4 or 5 birds, a couple of mallards, 3 black ducks and a mallard hen, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, okay, yeah, you know what, it didn't freeze. It didn't, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Alright, so once I've got the feathers put to the side and properly, the keeping feathers properly packaged from my boy Jeremy, what I like to do is I like to shove said bird into a plastic bag for the plucking. I'm gonna do this just to be kind to my neighbors. The problem is I like to let my birds hang for a day or two before processing them. And if you're gonna let them hang, you kind of need that insulation. If I had plucked this and then let it hang, this bird would have been unusable. But when they're still a little warm, this down comes off quite a bit easier. The down pretty much comes with the feathers. This bird might, however, be a candidate for just being breasted out. I might not worry about the legs so much. But yeah, sure. So, I mean, you can't really, I mean, it'll never be perfect, but it won't be perfect. There's always going to be some, but all right. See here, you can see where I tore the skin a little bit. It's not really ideal, but this bird's going to be, I'm just going to breast this one out. Aside from like not being a huge fan of the leg meat, it's just not going to be worth the trouble with the bird being partially frozen. So, all right. The next thing I like to do after I've exposed the breast, usually when you pluck this a little sooner, all these feathers come right off. Unfortunately, that didn't happen here, and as a result, we have to torch. As you get these little hairs, yeah, it smells not great. Just give it a couple little blasts with the torch. Give it a brush down with the rubber glove hand. Okay. So I peeled a little more back. I'm going to try to see if I can salvage these legs. I think they should be good. So usually when I harvest the bird, I like to let them hang for a day or two. It is kind of weather dependent. I mistakenly didn't pay attention to the forecast and left this bird hanging for 2 days. First night it stayed in like the 30s. The next night last night it went down to like 10 degrees. So this bird did freeze a little bit. Would have been worse if I had plucked it prior to letting it hang. The breast didn't freeze. The legs are kind of frozen because there's a little less featherage there, plumage, if you will. I'm gonna try to salvage them, but okay. Now for the cut. So your duck has its breastbone right here, wishbone right up into here. There's a little more meat kind of tucked in there, so that one we can try and be a little more surgical with. But what I like to do is I like to pinch the skin a little bit and then get the tip of my knife right up against that breastbone there and make my first cut. That way the knife is kind of riding the breastbone. It helps to have a really sharp knife. Normally I use a fillet knife, actually. I do have a fillet knife here. But that first initial cut, I think it's more ideal with like a buck knife. Fillet knife is cool because it will kind of bend and keep the pressure where you want it. Just run your knife down the body. I like to use the knife to kind of push the meat over a little bit. That way I can get my thumb in there. And then again, I'm going to use the tip of that knife to just ride it along the inside of the bird's cavity here. You do want to pay special attention not to cut into here. This is where the, probably should have mentioned that before. I like to leave the guts intact when I let the bird hang as long as I can. If it's a gut shot, then obviously I won't even let them hang. I'll just harvest them as fast as I can. So there's a little more meat right in here. So this is where that wishbone is. With the wishbone, I kind of like to pull the skin away a little bit, like towards me, and then angle the knife in and up. There's some meat right in here. And if you don't angle it that way, it gets kind of tricky to get to that meat. If you miss that meat, it's not that big of a deal. These are pretty big birds, so. But then you just pull away and cut down. Big, healthy, late season bird. You see all that fat in there. That's really not healthy anymore. You're dead. And then for the breast, you can just cut the breast out like that. Oh, look at that BB. I'm assuming that's one of mine. See, and this meat right down in here in that wingage, that's all actually frozen. And that is how I'm expecting the rest of these legs to look, which is why I was really just gonna pass on them. Yeah, see, that's a little bit of that shoulder meat there, but you can see great coloration. I'll have to clean that up in a minute. But yeah, there's one of my BBs. Assuming it's one of mine. So once I peel that away, I like to break the leg. That way you can get right behind this joint here, and then that comes right off. So again, I got a little feathered, little plumage that we don't need right into the bed. Right, and just like that, it's processed. Yeah, my glasses died while I was processing these, so yeah, vacuum sealed, dated. Thanks for watching.